right around like graduating high school, like around, I don't know, early 20s, I guess, I started to question things. And then I'm just like, fuck this shit. Like, why do we spend so much time worrying about what everybody else is thinking?
Well, and that you exude a lot of confidence. That's where I think you and I are very similar. You've obviously got much better hair than I do, but when did this confidence start? Like, was it you? Obviously playing sports. If you're doing well in sports, you're going to have a lot of confidence. Was it a parent thing? Did it you at one point? Did you just say, "I'm done with this shit. Let's go"?
Yes, actually it was. It's because it's quite opposite. Ironically, I wore a lot of masks. I was able to blend in a lot, and I've always had a pretty good personality, and that's what people liked. And that's where I think it let me. I use the word survive because my youth and my high school years were some of the darkest years of my life. Like I actually spent majority of my life suicidal. I'm 37, so if somebody's like, "How old are you?" and you say majority of life, 37, and most of it I actually didn't want to be here. I wasn't happy. I wasn't confident. I hated how I looked. I didn't think I was smart. I didn't think I was going to amount to anything. I felt below average or semi-average. If I was good at anything, I didn't take it. I didn't allow it. And so then, yeah, it was, again, kind of going back to, I think it was around 19, 18. My dad, I think, vicariously lived through me in the concept of he started to give, my dad died. So if I talk on past tense, he died in 2021. And he gave me this gift, I think, that he couldn't give himself, is the opportunity to be someone else, be yourself. And he was always very different, but he didn't have the confidence and he didn't have the courageousness to try to pursue that because it's different from everybody else. And so when he started to notice me question things, I noticed he backed me. So he himself had none. And I didn't necessarily always believe him, but it started with just small things of starting to recognize the thought process I had towards myself. I took sarcasm as something to be like funny, light, making conversations light or whatever. But when I really started to analyze my sarcasm, I was usually completely like kicking myself on the ground over and over and over again. So that was like my first step into this. And then, yeah, once I hit like my early 20s, this is another story, but, I guess it was like, actually, no, my late 20s, I eventually was led to go do ayahuasca in Peru, which is a whole nother story of what that is and all this shit. But around that stage in my life, it was like my mid 20s. I remember having a conversation with my husband. We're maybe married 2 years, been together about 6 at this point. And it was just like, shit or get off the fan. Like this depression shit isn't working. This sulking isn't working. Like go do something different. And like from that moment on, I made a commitment to myself that nobody's fucking getting in my way. Nobody's gonna, like, at the end of the day, when I go to die, nobody's lived my life but me. So why do I care about what people feel? Like, I mean, we can care in the sense of being respectable or taking in consideration of something, but we are not mandated to listen in form of taking it on as an action that we must follow. And I just kind of just unapologetically said, fuck this shit. And here I am, and it gets stronger and stronger each year. Right around like graduating high school, like around, I don't know, early 20s, I guess, I started to question things. And then I'm just like, fuck this shit. Like, why do we spend so much time worrying about what everybody else is thinking, everybody else is doing? Because it seems like everybody's pretty much miserable most of the time or complaining about life or in places they don't want to be. And so that just sort of spun me into like this curiosity of not saying yes to everything, but not necessarily saying no. To where, like, for example, the Alzheimer thing of, I'm not saying that it's factual, but I'm not saying it's not factual, but I also believe there's so many sides to so many stories, or like you said, you can go on Google these days and find 5 scientific studies all leading to 5 different freaking answers. And I think at the end of the day, the answer that matters is the answer that sort of relates best for you and that takes you in the direction where you want to go. And so that's just sort of been my premise of like working with people or just being a person. And that's kind of where I just get it from. I'm just tired of the fake shit and I'm honest and I'm real about it. And I think that actually benefits people instead of the whole, like, is somebody upset? Is somebody's panties in a wad? They're always going to be somebody.
Grab the weapon.
Yeah.
Like, what are you doing? Somebody. 2 things happened. His contributing factor and trigger was Elvis, but he was also on this medication called Prazosin. And the military is notorious for just prescribing dope. The opioid crisis, the military started it. Let's be honest. Because we were just prescribed. Let me ask you a question. Have you heard me say the word commit at any point in this?
No.
Here's the reason, Chris. Rapists commit rape. Murderers commit murder. Nobody commits suicide. It's not a crime.
Oof.
We have to get rid of that word, because the connotation of that word commit is what we used to use, especially in the Army. If you were suicidal, done. Conversation's over. I'm going to send you to the wizard. They're going to prescribe you some stuff. I want you to sit in the corner, out of sight, out of mind. Take your dope, drool, listen to Pink Floyd, and don't say a word. The other spectrum was, when you get back from the wizard, I'm going to work you to death. So when you get home, you're so exhausted. No, when they get back, they're ready to move forward, post-traumatic growth.
Yeah, I like that.
You've got to be able to tell them that you felt like this. What's your contributing factor? When I would identify that contributing factor, I was like, great. They're like, why is that so important? I said, because when I create your safe plan, I'm going to make sure that you understand you will be exposed to your trigger and your contributing factor over and over and over.
It's going to happen.
Yeah. So one guy's like, well, the smell of exhaust drives me nuts. I'm like, well, we can't fix that.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Go live on Mars.
You know, when I do my presentation, I've got a few slides in it. And I took that 96 slideshow and I turned it into maybe 30 with deep resonating thought into it. Some of my slides would just have one word on it, like fear, shame, discredit, dishonor. So I've got a series of slides that I say, hey, let's look at a few contributing factors that people have told me. And as I'm going through these, ask yourself if they're rational to you. That's the question before it. On one of the slides, it's got scattered thought. I got all these different contributing factors on there. One of them is Elvis. So every now and then I'll get somebody say, Craig, tell me about Elvis. Seriously? Are you kidding? And I always lead in by saying, well, one, Elvis is not dead. Okay, let's accept that. Okay, he's out there somewhere, hopefully. Anyways, I said, well, here's what happened. I said, I had a soldier, special operations soldier, Green Beret, who hated Elvis. And he told his wife, never play Elvis when I'm home. But he never told her why. So one day he gets back early from a deployment, and his deployment was one of those short ones, about 4 weeks long. And it was rough. It was really rough on him. He gets back early because he wanted to surprise his wife. Whenever we got back from a deployment or a mission, there was always this honeymoon phase. And you wanted to exploit that because you wanted to forget everything you just did. He walks in and she's playing Elvis really loud. He breaks down. He doesn't even look at her. When he's walking away, she turns around, realizing somebody's in the house. She sees it's him. He goes straight to his locker where his gun was at, goes to charge the slide, and that's when she grabbed the weapon. She's like, what are you doing? Two things happen. His contributing factor and trigger was Elvis, but he was also on this medication called prazosin. And the military is notorious for just prescribing dope. The opioid crisis, the military started it. Let's be honest. We were just prescribed. So he was actually allergic to one of the chemicals that was in prazosin. And what they didn't know was if he got exposed to his trigger, the prazosin acted in a negative manner. So the medication was telling him, we can't do this anymore. So when I get there, talk him down, all that jazz, I get inside his head. I was like, talk to me, brother. Been there, done that. Same blood, same mud. What's going on? He's like, she was playing Elvis. I was like, oh, okay. Give me more, man. Yeah, and I kind of chuckled. He's like, I can't. It's too traumatic. I was like, exactly. That's why we need to get it out there. She didn't know that when he was 16 and his mom killed herself and he walked in coming home from high school, that Elvis was playing in the background. Yeah. So she's dead on the floor and Elvis is playing. So I tell people, I was like, so is that rational for him? And that's where I break down the mentality of other people, especially the naysayers and the skeptics. Those are my favorite people in the audience, truly. I'll say, was that rational for him? I said, because your perception is not their reality.
Okay, but say someone's in a massive funk. Okay. And they cannot see positive in front of them. They just can't. They're broke. They're having whatever issues. Wife's leaving them. Kids just got in an accident, whatever. And they've got no positive in front of them. How do you get that guy out of a funk?
You have to be relatable, and you have to at the end of the day, recognize his contributing factors and validate them. So yeah, that sucks. You have to be honest. You can't say, oh, it's going to get better by today. I don't know. No, you got to tell him the truth, man. You can't lie to a dude who is suicidal. You got to tell him the truth. And there's been times I've had to be borderline grotesque. I had a guy, he's a command sergeant major. He and I served together for many years. He'd been in the Army 34 years. And at the time, the Army changed the rules when it came to forced retirement. If you were not being promoted to a higher position of authority, and you were over your 20-year mark, they would tell you, thank you for your service. It's time to retire. Well, this guy's single, never been married. His whole life was the military. He put everything, his heart and soul into it. And he wanted to go to the 40 years where that's actually a mandatory cutoff at 40 years. So at 34 years, he was not getting promoted to a position of higher authority, et cetera. And this gentleman was in a very, very serious position in special operation aviation regiment.
Anyways.
Sorry. This poor gentleman, I get the call. He hadn't showed up to work and he was never late. And he wasn't answering his phone. So something was off. So they sent some military police guys there and they're looking in the window and they called me immediately, say, you need to get over here. So I show up and I was like, what am I looking at? And I peek in the window. He had taped a sawed-off shotgun around his head and to his hands.
Jesus.
And because his contributing factor was being told, thank you for your service, you're done. So you got to get creative. And I even used Rush one day to talk a guy down. I said, man, who's your favorite band? I heard music playing before I walked in. He goes, oh, I was listening to Rush. I was like, man, I love Rush. He's like, no, you don't. I was like, oh, hold up. I got you. That talked him down. That helped. So I walk in. I was like, Sergeant Major, brother, battle. What are we doing, man? He's like, the Army told me I have to retire. I was like, so you never thought this job was going to end one day? You didn't think that eventually we're going to get to take off this uniform? He goes, I'm not ready. I was like, brother, congratulations. He's like, what are you talking about? I was like, you made it. All the years together in combat, you survived. This is your graduation ceremony. I was like, you need to stand up in front of everybody so they can honor you and recognize you. So we actually did a retirement ceremony just for him. Normally you get like about a dozen people together that are in the same window and you do this big ceremony. We did it just for him. There was over 1,000 people on the field. And, you know, I used that to talk him down. I used his contributing factor to talk him down. I said, you made it. He goes, yeah, but what am I going to do? I said, brother, I didn't know what I was going to do. And look at me. I'm here in front of you in a suit. I was like, let's go get a beer. Come on. You know, sadly, I ended up having to tackle him because I saw his finger go inside the trigger well. And he told me that he wasn't going to do it, but I didn't know. So I tackled him, dropped the slide, all that jazz. He's like, oh, I don't want to die. I don't want to die. So here's what I know, Chris. Everybody that I was not successful in talking down, and they would do an attempt right in front of me, as we're saving their life, 100% of those people would say, I don't want to die. When they start realizing that the heart is fading, they're getting down to 22 beats per minute, and not because they're in shape. You know, it's getting cloudy. You know, their eyes are getting fuzzy. You know, they're having a hard time hearing, and they're saying it repeatedly. I do not want to die.
The way I grew up, I mean, you know, a little bit. I mean, I was getting my head kicked in pretty much every day for years and years and years. So I don't know. I just had a lot of struggles. So to me in life, it's you just got to kind of find a way to pick yourself up.
Exactly.
Yeah, but
Right,
300
Ben, what are the
pounds.
key Ben, one of the key things you say is if you lose, you have to pick yourself up and fight again. My question is, do you feel that is something you just had in you from the start, or was it taught to you?
Well, I mean, the way I grew up, I mean, you know, a little bit. I mean, I was getting my head kicked in pretty much every day for years and years and years. So I don't know. I just had a lot of struggles. So to me in life, it's you just got to kind of find a way to pick yourself up and just try to move on and learn a little bit and be a little bit better and figure all this out. Because just for me, I was a kid that wasn't given a chance at all. You know, arrested 3 times before I was 15 years old. Nobody gave me a chance. And yet here I am. I have the Goliath Foundation. I help so many people. I help kids. I inspire people. And I was a guy with no chance because I kept picking myself up. I kept getting up. When people knocked me down, when I was arrested, when I was kicked out of school, when I had things taken from me and everything, I kept picking myself up, say, what could I learn? What could I learn? How can I be better? How can I be stronger? How can I move forward until I got it? I know how to keep, and now I know how to keep from falling down anymore. But if I do fall, I'll pick myself up and be wiser for it. And I think everybody needs to do that. That's what life is about.
Next question, was there, Ben? That was a phenomenal answer, by the way. You talked a lot about taking care of your own happiness. And I was wondering what you would tell someone who is just so beaten down, they feel they can't even do that.
Well, it's all about perspective, right? Because I think that, so my work with men especially ones that are really struggling, is to let them know that, you know what, if you have a cushy life, or not even a cushy life, but you've had a nice life, you've probably not really exercised that muscle of resilience. So what I'm always trying to highlight people who are really struggling is, look at where you are, look at how far you've gotten just to be alive, just to be, whatever it is, 20 years old, 30, 40, 50, whatever it is. You have a certain resilience that you're not giving yourself credit for. See it, recognize it, own it. If you're a drug addict and you're an alcoholic and you're all these different things, you've gotten through all that stuff. You've gotten through more stuff than you've gotten through more things, more struggles, more obstacles than most people have. So you have a strength. You're alive. You're here. Now go with it. Own it. Be it. And so that's really what I try to get people to understand and try to own is like, you know what? All that shit that you feel so bad about, that's your greatest gift. It's your greatest gift because it gave you the strength that most people don't have, and an understanding. Like, if you're homeless and you're in the street and you're a crackhead and you're all these things, you have a richness to life, an understanding of a life that most people will never understand. And if you could flip that switch to where it's like, okay, now I'm going to take that experience and use it to uplift myself and everyone around me, that's a true gift. So instead of seeing the struggle as like, oh, poor me, it's like, oh, no, you know what? I'm strong and I have something that most people don't have, and then go with it. And I see people do it all the time. It's like walking through a door. It's like, oh, yeah, I'm actually stronger than other people. I'm actually more resilient, and my life has more richness of experience.
To have to live with that for the rest of my life.
Really
so, I had no idea. I still have no idea what my fate's going to be. As you said, I just became a convicted felon this afternoon. My sentencing is still, it's all up to the judge, and that's scheduled for mid-February. And, we'll see what the judge has to say about everything.
His name is Chris Bentley. Welcome, Chris Bentley. He's been married for almost 15 years, has 2 boys, ages 13, 11. Oh, you're about to get interesting right there. He's a Marine veteran. He's an entrepreneur. He's an author of Burning Bellatorum, a phenomenal book. I just finished it. We're going to talk about that a little bit because, like I told Chris, it should actually be 3 books. And he is a convicted felon. The last thing I said about you is you're now a convicted felon. That just happened literally 2 hours ago. You went to your court case. It's basically this book, Burning Bellatorum, is the story of a $40 million fraud and its priceless lessons for investors and entrepreneurs. Let me give you the Cliff Notes version. Okay, so Bentley doesn't have to go through the whole entire thing again and again and again. Basically, he was running this big company. He was doing something where he needed a lot of money. He ended up going through it and basically cheated his clients and people, his friends and family, out of $40 million, and basically came out at the very end and just said, hey, heads up, this is what I did. You were trying to swim above water the entire time and just couldn't do it. Basically, he was Wolf of Wall Street without the sub-60s, the hookers, and the blow. Did I get that kind of right?
Yeah, close enough.
Close enough, right? Okay, so my that's the bottom line. You've turned yourself in. You've established that, oh my God, you went down the wrong path. That was a big deal. We've got that. I want to go down a different avenue with these questions. What was harder, going through the Marines or telling your family the truth about what you did?
Telling my family. Yeah.
In what way?
Just like admitting failure and that I, didn't honor my character, that I didn't have integrity, things like that. And to admit that to my wife and kids and to my, to everybody is definitely the most difficult thing I've done in my life. The Marines was, not anywhere near as difficult. There was physical pain at times and, like, oh gosh, what did I get myself into? But, this will be with me for the rest of my life. Whereas, what's the saying? Pain is temporary, pride is forever. Well, there's no pride in what I did at Bellatorum. And, that regret and shame will be with me forever. So
yeah, and like we talked about, where you're jokingly almost, now you have some time, because I always said that the book Burning Bellatorium should be 3 books, and you're like, well, now I'm going to have some time, because I kind of had to rush it before because you weren't sure if you were going in right away. Okay, here's another question I have for you. I'm completely torn on your sentencing. So you just got convicted today, you guilty. Now, not until like February or March, they're going to give you your sentencing. And I'm usually the very bottom line rude guy, where if I see someone goes to jail for, say, if I'm at, how old am I, 40s, late 40s, and I go to jail for 187 years, I'm the kind of guy that has said to myself, okay, that guy should just be knocked off. You're wasting taxpayer money and all that. But now I go through your case, and I've talked to our buddy Ian about it, and I'm torn because I don't know what your sentence should be, because you know what you did. Yeah, you screwed up, and you obviously have to, you got to pay a little bit of punishment, so the next, Chris Bentley doesn't go, ooh, I can do this, blah, blah, blah. And you're like, well, there's no punishment. Well, I'm going to definitely do it. So what do you think your punishment should be?
I think I mentioned this. You've got the poster behind you, right? So Jordan Belfort served 22 months and on a 4-year sentence, I believe. Don't hold me to those exact numbers, but I think that's what happened with him. And his was like, I believe, $180 million or something like that. And he was using the money for his lifestyle and, and all that. And so if I use that as, kind of an example of what, then I think that I would be happy. I would feel like it was still justice if I did 22 months or something, that or less. Right. So that, and I think what's best for the investors is for me to pay restitution. Right. So like, what's different about these white collar crimes or financial crimes, if you will, is you actually can make amends. Like, I mean, it's going to be difficult, don't get me wrong, but you, with a rapist or a murderer or something like that, I mean, there's really no way to make the victim whole, right? Like, you can't bring the dead back to life or undo the harms that you've caused somebody. But with financial crimes, I think my victims are best served if I'm out working and trying to make restitution and at least chipping away at that. But look, there's people, I mean, I've maintained contact with some of the quote unquote victims, and some of them have said, hey, Chris, we realize what you did was not malicious, and we take risk when we invest, and he's like, I'm not happy about what you did, but I'm not hating on you for it. And then there's literally others that think I deserve to go to prison for the rest of my life.
Well, you just took my last questions. What are your words to future entrepreneurs who are just about to head down the wrong street? Like, you get, because everyone who's building their own business, they know, like, oh, this is it could be a shortcut. What do I do?
It's it doesn't, if you're a decent human being, you will regret it for the rest of your life, because you will have damaged your character and your integrity, violated those things. But also, some things that, some of your audience may or may not care about this, but you become a convicted felon, you can't vote, and you can't own guns. You can't own guns for the rest of your life. So I guess my point is there's consequences that I think people don't think about. Like, they may say, oh, I'm not scared to go to jail or whatever, but there's other things that I think matter. And then obviously, your reputation with the people you love. I don't know what my 2 sons think of me. I don't think they're at the age where they can articulate that yet, but I know they're not proud of their dad. I know they're not hanging out with their buddies on their soccer team saying, hey, my dad's a fraudster, so I would just caution people not to color outside the lines and do the hard thing up front, which is way easier than what I'm going through now. Right. If it would have been, the hard thing up front would have been to say, hey, the investment's not working out. That's not illegal. Right. I would have probably got sued if I just notified everybody when things started to go south, like, hey, things are going south. People would have been mad, but that's not illegal, right? I just would have salvaged whatever money was left, whatever assets were there, and had some people mad at me. But instead, I lied and covered it up and started doing wrong things. And now I'm a convicted felon. All their money's gone. And it's really bad, right?
Right now, one of the Bentley, I really appreciate your time. I wish you the best of luck. We're good buds. We'll continue to talk, and we'll continue to see where this goes. Make sure you guys get Burning Bellator. Where can they find out some more information on this book?
So it's self-published and it's available on Amazon, Kindle, and Audible. So those three venues or whatever platforms, you can download it or purchase it there, and appreciate it.
Yeah, like I said, it's a very, very good book. It's a quick read. It's not saying that it's basic, but it's good. And like I said, it should be 3 books. I took it as 3 different books, and it's absolutely phenomenal. Bentley, thank you so much for your time. We really appreciate it.